I didn't know exactly what was the reason why the Vietnam War was going on. I was a 17-year-old boy and I didn't have an idea why the United States was in war. What I knew was that in order to go to university or in order to have an American citizenship, I had to go to war. I had to give my military service. But when I arrived there after basic training, I started seeing different things that were unusual, like the racism that we endured in Vietnam. It was terrible. There was racism from both parts. Racism from them toward Americans. They wanted Americans out of their country. They didn't want anybody there that was an outsider. They just wanted Vietnamese people. And we, the Americans, also were very racist, very prejudiced against the Vietnamese, especially the communist Vietnamese. I arrived there in 1973, almost at the end of the war. We had to fight for Saigon, the capital, because the Vietnamese had already taken the rest of the country. So we were in the last, I was there in the last phase of the war. We had to leave a lot of equipment like tanks, helicopters, and a lot of buildings without being destroyed because we didn't have the time. Actually, they kicked our ass. They threw us out of Vietnam by force. So let me tell you a little perspective of the world at that time. The United States was not very happy that the Chinese and the North Vietnamese would make South Korea a communist country. The country wasn't divided then, and the reason the United States got into the war is because they wanted to stop communism. So they sent a few hundreds men just to train their military, but later on we needed more men and more and more and more to the point where we had thousands of men in Vietnam dying. Actually, over 50,000 American young men died in Vietnam. And the reason why we were actually expelled from there is because I think we didn't treat the people very well. At the beginning, we treat them with racism. You know, Americans think that we are better than anybody else, and therefore we feel that we deserve the best. And it's wrong. Vietnamese had the right to do whatever they wish in their country. We didn't have the right to tell them what to do. The American military only wanted to stop communism, but we actually did more wrong than right. Let me give you an example. When we invaded the little villages, the sergeants, for example, the commanders used to say, "We want no prisoners in this village because this is an enemy village." We had to kill everybody, including women and children. Nobody, no prisoner means that nobody can remain alive to be a witness of what happened. So we killed everybody. We not only killed everybody, but we also killed the animals. We burned their food so they will not have economic backup support. We wanted to kill them totally. And that's, I think, was our mistake because people started hating us. They were afraid of us. Every time they see us with guns and machine guns going into their villages, they were very, very scary. They used to run and scream, "The Americans are coming!" And they had to hide and hide quickly because the helicopters started shooting and we started killing everybody. And I think that was our biggest mistake. Take no prisoners. Because they were fighting for communism. They were fighting for land. They were fighting for influence. The Chinese and the Russians, in that time, it was the Soviet Union, they wanted to infiltrate communism into the whole world, starting with Vietnam and then moving on to the other countries. I think that the biggest lesson that I learned in the 18 months that I was in Vietnam is that you should not trust the governments. Let me give you an example. At that time, most of my friends died. As a matter of fact, of my whole platoon of 15 people, only I and somebody else survived. Only 2 people out of 15. And the only reason I survived is because I was taken out of the field and come as an interpreter to the Nicaraguan Contra and Sandinista war. I came as a translator here. And this is why I'm alive. Otherwise, I would be dead. So I would have given my life for the United States war, but then now they are friends with Vietnam. Even though Vietnam is communist, now they are doing business with the United States. They are very friendly, and we died for them. So the lesson number one that I learned is not to trust the government, not to fight a war that is not yours, not to make any decisions on your own or fight for a government that you are willing to give your life for nothing, for something that is not worth giving your life for. Now there are friends, even though they are communists. The United States and Vietnam are friends now, and we are dead. My friends are dead for that reason. So the biggest lesson that I learned is not to fight for any government, not to trust any politician, not to believe in any government. In my experience, what was my worst experience in Vietnam? Well, my worst experience, I had many bad experiences, but the worst experience I ever had is to see death, to see the possibility of dying right in front of you. When you have bullets going through your head, when you have people that want to kill you want to run, you want to bury yourself, you want to hide, and your heart is going at 1,000 miles per hour. You don't want to die. Nobody wants to die. So the worst experience is to confront death. In my case, I came back with psychological trauma because I was afraid to go back to the streets or to go out of my house without being with a gun. I was afraid to walk on the street without a gun. I had to have a pistol, a gun, or something to defend myself. It took me a long time. It took me about 3 years to be relaxed when I went out. I was married and and I was very afraid to go out without a gun. I thought that I had to defend my family with a gun. I always had a gun when I was in the house in case somebody came into the house and robbed the house, or if we had a thief on the street, I had to have a gun. Number two, I couldn't sleep at night because when I was in Vietnam, the fighting, the combat always came when we were asleep. The Vietnamese attacked about 2, 3, or 4 o'clock in the morning, always. So they attacked when I was in bed, they attacked when I was sleeping. So when I came back home, I couldn't sleep anymore. I was sometimes screaming and jumped out of bed thinking that I was going to get killed. My wife got tired of me, my first wife, and that's why she asked me for divorce because I was screaming and yelling and jumping out of bed all the time. It took me 3 years to relax through psychological help and the use of drugs. It helped me. Well, after all these years, I'm still afraid. You know, it's been 40 or maybe 50 years since I came back, and I'm still afraid. When I have to go into a darkness, when I have to go into the streets by myself, I still feel that I've been watched. I feel that I am going to get shot at. I feel that I'm going to get killed. So after so many years, I'm still afraid. So that's something that it never leaves you alone after so many years. Came back, I wasn't very well received. If I wasn't in military uniform, people used to throw things at me, like tomatoes, or probably spitting on my face. And I didn't like that very much. We didn't know as a soldier, as a 17-year-old soldier, we didn't know what was going on. We just followed orders and went to war. But when we came back, there were a lot of strikes. A lot of university students were very angry and saying terrible things to us. And we really didn't know why, because we were following orders.